Well, joining us now is Rise analyst and lawyer, Dr. Sam Amadi. Good to see you and thanks for your time. Well, not too good a time, especially this is coming at a time that a lot of Nigerians are asking questions of the judiciary. Now, this is gone back and forth, now talking about clerical error, but let's jump into that page, is it 68 there, where this is about. Specifically, it says, I will conclude by stating that the live issues in this appeal are hereby resolved in favor of the first respondent and against the appellant. And when you go to the other paragraph, it also contradicts the first one. What do you think this means for us close watchers and people like yourself, lawyers?
First, it's a terrible time to be a lawyer, terrible time for the judiciary. I mean, too many things happen at the same time. So the image is not good, the perception is not good. I'm sure when we're going to chronicle this period, we'll say we've seen this kind of anomaly. I remember as a young lawyer, with Chief Garify me, that this happened once, when in fact, more grievous, when the Supreme Court in this case gave two different judgments, and Chief Garify took it up, and the Supreme Court had to come back to do some kind of formal clarification, maybe had a proceeding. Now, the first thing to do is to say, look, I read those areas about twice. They were different, they conveyed a different sense that the appeal succeeds, whereas the appeal didn't succeed. Clerical error typically would be things like what happened in the case of ABGA and Njoko and ABGA chairman, where instead of saying maybe the name of somebody, you put a different name. Yeah. But when you, in two sentences, seem to suggest clearly that an appeal succeeds, which you had said didn't succeed, you don't blame NMPP when they argue that maybe this was a rewrite. So the first point is it that the original decision was to allow the appeal, in which case the judgment was written to allow the appeal, and subsequently it was rewritten, and then you left some of this smoking gun. That's one perspective. Now, the Court of Appeals perspective is that this is slip rule. I want to call it a slip rule, meaning error, clerical error, the court will have the right to rectify the records. So for me, I see three problems here. First, the tardiness. I mean, if you look at the whole process in which the Nigerian judiciary is not suffering only from corruption, which is now patent. You know, everyone knows that we are corrupt, unfortunately. Also, we see a high level of generalized incompetence to the point of irresponsibility. You know, we saw a bit of that with the tribunal or the principal tribunal, where there were earlier communication about, oh, we didn't get, the judgment had the imprint of APC legal team. Yeah. I mean, the tardiness is extremely frustrating and annoying, and, you know, has no dignity. This shouldn't have to the Court of Appeal. And don't forget that this is 14 days or more after the judgment. Nobody went back to read this, make the corrections. First, if you look at other jurisdictions, when this case happened, in less than a few minutes, hour, it's uploaded on the electronic portal. So here, people have to complain. And the way they now complain, you discover that even after 14 days of editing and looking at something, you still see this kind of terrible. So for me, the first takeaway is, look, probably we have too many recruitment error. In human resource, we call it pure, previously unidentified recruitment error. We've put many people on the bench, really, perhaps, who don't have the qualification, the integrity, the competence, and even the presence of mind to do this job. This is really, whether it's error, intentional, or malicious, this is really a statement around generalizing competence of a union type. So that's the first. The second will not be, people will go home and say, well, you know, this is about perception, not reality. People can go home and say, well, they actually wanted to allow this appeal. Last minute, they came back to write it and then couldn't do it, you know, very well. So anyhow you do it, this has damaged reputation, and it's a serious issue to worry about.
How do you redeem the reputation of the judiciary? And by the way, do the judges themselves, do they write the judgments themselves, really, at the end of the day? Or is it outsourced to maybe assistants or, you know, what have you, that could have led to this kind of situation?
In the judicial craft.
And are there really gatekeepers that will ensure that this doesn't even happen in the first place?
First, the gatekeeper is the judge himself. You see, the judicial craft is a judge is writing an opinion. That's called an opinion. This is what the judge thinks. The other judges can differ. Two, of course, in other jurisdictions, first-class brains are judicial assistants. So if you look at the U.S., when we were in college, in graduate school, the biggest bragging right is that you're interned for a judge. At the Court of Appeal Supreme Court. The best students work with them. Now it helps them in terms of research, in terms of arguments. They help them bring out what they said before, and then you will see the judges. But they will take ownership. They write it, whether their wife typed it for them, whatever. Is the judge's opinion. The gatekeeping here is what I talk about the quality. There's a generalized incompetence in the judiciary, not just about this case. It's everywhere. One, the kind of people who recruit to the bench. You see the stories about judges planting their children, politicians putting their wives and children everywhere. So you see some people who've never practiced in any serious law firm as a legal practitioner, who've not probably law professor, who has not taught, who doesn't even know the law much, who have not worked in a place. 12 years caught to the bar, they smuggle you in, and you have a right to the Supreme Court or the Court of Appeal. So every day you see this telltale signs. I call it error in recruitment. You see telltale signs of total lack of awareness. Because a judge, even if somebody wrote anything for you, I mean,
it should reflect the
you
judge's...
will come there, go through it one by one.
Right.
This is a judgment. They're going to become public document one day or the other.
And Dr. Amadi,
so it speaks to some level of lack of awareness and seriousness.
Really suspicion, knowing full well that it had to come from the NNPP, spotting this and raising the alarm 4 days after that.
Absolutely.
But again, clarify for us, in this case, the appellant will be the governor.
The appellant is the governor who was first knocked down. Yeah.
And if this is a clerical error, look at the other place, the last one on that same page, the sum of 1 million naira is hereby awarded as cost in favor
of the appellant. That's the point I'm saying. In those two instances, it's not just a normal clerical error. Normal clerical error would be maybe the misplaced name, they use a tense, a sentence, a phrase that's different. This is a whole meaning conveyed in two instances. And again, the judges are always careful about conclusion, because they may, you can see obiter, arguments that are good to nothing, but when it comes to now deciding, they will be very careful, because that's really what counts. So what counts is actually what they decide. If literally the judges decided in that instance, that appeal succeeds. So that conclusion is critical. And so you're right. Anybody who reads this will say, wait a minute, what's going on here? And it could lead to invalidation, because it's like two judgments in one judgment. You are saying X, I am saying B. Now you sit back and say, well, what's clerical error? The point is, it's not a typical kind of clerical error that we see.
Right.
This is more like maybe absence-mindedness, some kind of, the judge or whoever had collapsed and couldn't wake up and then started getting back to disjointed. The meaning is not the same.
So
but
how do you remedy this in this particular case and going forward?
First, in this particular case, the judge is going to take it back and say clerical error under the Court of Appeal rules.
Is it enough to just say
sleep
clerical
rule,
error?
we reverse it. That's the first. That's what the registrar is conveying. Now, the judge is a judge, so it's left for the Supreme Court maybe to look at it and say, well, but look at the key point here. The key point here is we've gotten to a point, slippery slope, where we're not just talking about just corruption that everybody knows and accepts. We're talking about, do our judges really have the competence to really make these decisions, number one. Two, is the judicial craft itself not too debased that the processes, the registrars, they have clerks, they work with them, somebody types this, it was sent out certified by registrars, not just the judge himself. The judge is not the one who, the judge will now finish and give to them, they will certify it and the judge signs. So nobody spotted this until NNPP spotted it. So the question calls to order, really, the rigor of this institution called Judiciary in Nigeria, the recruitment, and the people have been raising this issue. Chiche Dodinkala has raised it several times, people have raised it. How do you recruit these people? Look, the whole idealism of act of judging is based on the fact that judges themselves are the best in kind. So you bring it forward, there are people who have applied themselves to this rigor, who have that comfort with work, desktop work, and reading and writing. That's the judge's work. But if you have people now who are basically traders, business people, and who don't have that intellectual and mental and character base. So this is just not one instance. I want us to see it as, if you look at, there are many cases like this. There are also, look at, in this electoral circle, we've had several allegations. Yeah. So the question is, for me, is that Nigeria is taking a risk, assuming that democracy is safe for all time.
As part of the cost of such...
Absolutely, because we're allowing these things. We're not, even the NBA should be worried, raising an inquest and say, this tells a sign of a decaying profession, and therefore a bad sign for democracy. Think about the president in Germany today telling investors, come to Nigeria. We talk about rule of law. Rule of law is not about transplanting foreign laws, Bankruptcy Act, okay? Wind up proceedings. Those are not the rule of law. Rule of law is that sense that the judiciary can be trusted. Now, if you're an investor coming to Nigeria, I tell you that a court of appeal issued a judgment, and after 14 days, the judgment is banana. It says neither this nor that. How are you going to come for invest? How are you going to invest? So the high cost of this tragic comedy, if you like, is that it nullifies everything we are building in terms of economic development, in terms of democracy. So people are going to say, if we can't even trust the Court of Appeal to do a decent job, simple, basic things, how then do we trust the legal system? And then why should we talk about coming for investment? And if you look at, that's why we're getting dwindling, people don't look at the data. Nigeria is getting dwindling foreign investment, far less than remittances from our diaspora. Angola, there are no fresh, you can do, there are little fresh investment coming, because this, apart from our crisis of insecurity, apart from the other issues we now have an epidemic of a faulty judiciary that's not just corrupt, but are also incompetent and doesn't have the rigor to deal with, the level of
Dr. Amadi, before we go, no penalty for the staff personnel responsible for this clerical error?
There should be. Don't forget, when the U.S. Supreme Court had their judgment leaked, the Supreme Court justice ordered an inquiry. So that there ought to be, for example, if this is an error of staff, then there should be penalty to show that the system rejects it, and the system is not defined by this colossal mistake. Right. But if we don't hear anything, they will know this is business as usual for the judiciary and for Nigeria.
Dr. Sam Amadi, lawyer, Arise News analyst, thank you as always for joining us.